to another Coding with Marcia. My name is Marcia, and today I will be discussing arrays, numpy arrays. So let's get to it. So the first thing that I want to discuss is what is an array. An array is a data structure that is basically a container of elements and that you can store in memory and later on reuse to do some numerical operations on the elements and so on. The good thing about arrays is that they are not only convenient because they allow us to store things in memory, which is very useful, but they are also very efficient, which explains why sometimes they are preferred over other alternatives such as lists or other types of collections. And you may ask me, why do I need a container anyway? Why do I need an array? Well, a container, an array, is very useful to store information that you gather in your experiments. For example, if you are an engineer, you might be recording a temperature of an equipment, and then you have to store it somewhere in your computer to perform operations on the data. But now let's start to construct arrays. Now I'm going to go to my Python environment, my PyCharm environment, and I'm going to import numpy. And then I'm going to use numpy to create an array. But before that, imagine that you didn't know how to create an array and you didn't know what function. There's a cool function in numpy that is the look for, that you can use like a Google search. You can do something like look for create array. And then you run. Okay, it's here. Now I think I'll go with this one. Okay? So when I want to create an array, I can use this function. How? I call np, I call the array, and then I'll pass a list to it with any items that I want. So imagine that the temperature was 27, then 28, then 27, then 28, and then 28 in the 5 measures that I took. I can call this array of temperatures. And I can print the array of temperatures. And I can also print a cool thing, which is the type of the array of temperatures. And I'm going to comment this line because I don't want it to run, because it would take a lot of time. And I'm going to run again. Okay, cool. So you see here my array. And you see here that it belongs to the class and the array. Cool. So far so good. Now, I want to teach you 3 cool functions that you can use to characterize an array. The first one is numpy ndim. And ndim I'm going to call on the array of temperatures because it's going to give me the number of dimensions in the array is and I'm going to pass the function and I'm going to see the number of dimensions of my array. Okay, it's 1. It only has 1 dimension because it's a 1-dimensional array. It makes sense. But there's also another cool function which gives you the number of elements in the array. You might say, but why do I need to calculate the length, the number of elements, if I already know it? Well, there will be situations in which you are handling arrays and doing so many operations that at some point you don't know the length anymore. And so you can use this function, the length of the array of temperatures, to get the length. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so the number of elements in the array is 5, that's correct. And there's also another interesting function that is the shape of the array is something format numpy shape of array of temperatures, and then I run, and it tells me that the shape of the array is 5 rows and 1 column. Now that we have talked about one-dimensional arrays, let's talk a little bit about two-dimensional arrays. As you will see, two-dimensional arrays have exactly the same mechanism as one-dimensional arrays, but they are slightly different in terms of structure. Let's see. So the first thing that I'm going to do is import the same numpy package, and then I'm going to create an array that, instead of having just one list, it has 2 lists of equal size. Okay, and this is going to create my array 1, my array of 2 dimensions. Okay, and then I can print the array of 2 dimensions. Let's go. Yeah, cool. So you see here that the array has 1 row of numbers and then another row of numbers. And now we can call the function to see the shape. Sorry. To the array is, and then I call format, and I call numpy okay, so I'm gonna print the shape. I'm gonna check it out. Yeah, so the shape is 2 rows and 3 columns, which is what we initially thought it was. Then you can also check for the number of elements in the 2D array. And this will call the very popular and very used function len. So I will call on array 2D. So the number of elements in the 2D array is 2, and finally we check the dimensions in the 2D array are, and then I call numpy and dim, and I pass the array. Let's check. Okay, so the dimensions in the 2 array are 2, and that makes sense because we are dealing with a 2-dimensional array. So far so good. You can also construct and create n-dimensional arrays that have a variable size of rows, a variable size of columns, and you can play around with this always in an efficient manner, because NumPy uses very efficient mechanisms to perform operations and to create the arrays. So now I'm going to give you an exercise for you to do. It is basically I'm just asking you to create a simple two-dimensional array with 2 rows and 3 columns, in which the first row is composed of even numbers, any numbers that you may want as long as they are even, and in the second row create numbers that are odd. Okay, so far so good. Thank you for watching and see you next lesson.